Welcome to WeAreSC's Inside the Trojans Huddle, your weekly group discussion on USC football and college football in general. Usual gang with us, Eric McKinney, editor-in-chief of WeAreSC, Mark Holkin, podcaster, writer for WeAreSC. I'm Chris Arledge, your substitute host, while Greg Katz is recuperating and doing well. Before we jump into it, if you like this show, no, I take that back. Even if you don't like this show, WeAreSC has a great offer for you. We're all about great offers here, right, Eric? If you join WeAreSC Premium, I can give you a code, USC1, just the numeral, right? You don't have to spell it out, Eric. USC1.
That's right. Easy.
And you get 2 months for a single dollar. Is that right?
Yep. You heard it.
I mean, look. Even if you think the content is terrible, it's worth $1. I promise you it's worth $1. I will write an article this week. That article will be worth $1. No more than that, but it'll be worth $1. So sign up. It'd be nice. If you want to click the like button, you can do that too. Okay, guys, we ready to jump in?
Oh.
Okay. So obviously a big recruiting weekend this past weekend. Second week in a row, they've had quite a few official visitors. This one's bigger than the first week. Let's start with this before we get into the substance of what happened. Eric, why don't you give us a rundown on the types of guys who were there so we know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, a big time weekend. There's another one coming up at the end of the month. We talked last week about what that first weekend was, and we kind of said that was like a appetite whetter, kind of a preview of what's coming. This was a big one. The biggest name, Julian Lewis, quarterback committed to USC. There's been nonstop talk from anywhere you can look outside of USC that he's not going to end up at USC. There's Auburn that gets talked about a lot. There was Georgia for a long time. There's now Indiana and Colorado. Yeah, that's right. Those two schools. So this was important to get him on campus around a bunch of other elite recruits where USC can show, like, these are the guys we're going after. These are the guys that we're going to surround you with. Important weekend to get him on. You had another 5-star guy in cornerback Dorian Brew from originally Ohio, now in Texas. You had a big-time local guy, Noah McHale, a linebacker. There were defensive linemen all over the place, a committed offensive lineman. You had a couple committed skill players, some big-time wide receivers, a couple guys there were guys from everywhere. Big offensive lineman from Iowa, a corner from Michigan who's now at IMG. You had guys from Texas. You had guys from Florida. You had a guy from Canada who's now playing football in Florida. So it's a lot of what USC's recruiting looks like right now. Just all over the country, not a ton of California guys, and very specific spots where they're trying to, I think, lock guys up right now. So it was 19 official visitors. If USC ended up with a bunch of just guys from this weekend in this class, it would be a phenomenal class. So they're really bringing in some big time guys, and I mean, you can kind of go down the list. Riley Pettyjohn's a big-time linebacker, a top 50 guy. Justin Hill, an edge defender, a top 50 guy. Andrew Marsh, a big-time wide receiver, number 61 in the country. Like this is a collection of like 7 or 8 top 100 guys. So it was a big weekend. We saw 3 fight on emojis, right, on X from Lincoln Riley. That typically means there's 3 commitments. There's been 1 public so far. That's from Hayden Lowe. He's a local 4-star edge defender from Oaks Christian. A big get. Like there's been a lot of talk, right? USC's not getting the local guys. They're not getting the Southern California kids. This is someone who had a Georgia offer, who had offers from all over the country, could have gone pretty much anywhere. USC did a good job to get him in the class because he was looking at officials to Texas and Oregon and some of those schools coming up. So that's sort of the run. I'm waiting for more fallout. Again, if there's 3 commitments, possibly more to make those public. But Hayden Lowe is the one that we know of so far.
So let's start with the biggest name in that group, Juju Lewis. Lewis to Indiana, right? Are we all agreed upon that? We think
He's
that
gone.
are we going to submit predictions?
Yeah, he's gone.
So here's the thing. I don't know what Juju Lewis is going to do. I don't know him. I do know that elite quarterbacks want to be coached by elite quarterback coaches, and they want to have talent around them. And they don't ordinarily go from the deep south to Indiana to play football. The fact that he's making visits to places like that tells me that his commitment is pretty solid. Anybody want to argue with that? That strikes me. I mean, I know we could be. Look, we're not going to engage in fact today. It's going to be all rumor and speculation. All right, so go ahead and speak up. Juju Lewis isn't going to go to Auburn. He's not going to go to Indiana. He knows that Lincoln Riley is the right coach for him. It's an absolute, once he dropped Georgia, it became an absolute no-brainer, right?
So I'll play the role of devil's advocate here. He's not going to Colorado. He's not going to go to Indiana. If USC has any competition, it will be Auburn. One, proximity. Playing close to home, family, friends. It does work for him there. And two, Juju's been very outspoken. He's enjoying the recruiting and the NIL process. He's been able to buy himself a car. He's been able to buy his dad a car. Auburn isn't shy about it either. They're throwing around the NIL rainmakers. They're throwing money around. So I'm not saying he's going to go to Auburn, but there is a chance that, Juju and his family can consider those things. It's not out of the question.
So Mark's predicting Auburn, I'm predicting Indiana. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think the one thing, the hurdle, the speed bump, whatever it is to just a very smooth, no mess transition from him to high school to USC is if USC just absolutely falls apart this season and defensively they are not good and they do not sign around him, or they're not on pace to sign around him a good class. Like I think he does want, he wants to get developed by Lincoln Riley. There's a reason he committed. There's a reason Caleb Williams followed Lincoln Riley everywhere and said he'd walk on to play for Lincoln Riley. He wants to get coached by Lincoln Riley. He also wants to win some college football games too. And so if you're not being surrounded by players where you can win, then you start to think, like, can I go somewhere else? Indiana is not going to surround him by players that can win the Big Ten. I understand there's a new staff there and they want to talk about what they're going to do. That's great. The SEC schools, if they have great seasons, they can say, hey, you can get developed. Like, they're sending quarterbacks to the NFL now more than they have in the past. So that is the hurdle I think that USC is going to have to clear. But I also think that it's a low-ish hurdle because of how big the draw of Lincoln Riley is. So, I mean, you're talking, I would, again, not coming from him, my guess, like 4 or 5 wins and just a recruiting class that implodes. Then you start to think, okay, does he look somewhere else? But right now, I think
Riley may lose all 3 of us too if that happens.
Sure. Right now, I just don't see a lot of like hand wringing from USC of like, oh my gosh, we're gonna lose this kid, and he's looking everywhere right now. I think it's okay for them to be pretty confident in keeping him.
4 wins and a terrible recruiting class, and I'll be leading Inside the Badgers Huddle next year. Okay, let's talk about some of the other guys. Look, ordinarily, an emoji means a commitment. Usually the public commitments follow shortly after the emojis, right? That's the way it usually goes. I think it's also the case that things move very quickly in recruit. Look, it's hard to imagine Lincoln Riley sends the emojis if he didn't get 3 commitments. But it's also possible, theoretically, I'm not saying this happened, that kids change their mind. They get a phone call, they get a big check, somebody drops a bag of money from a helicopter into the backyard. I don't know. And there's also a possibility that some of these kids who are going back to football crazy places where USC is not well liked, not well respected, may just want to keep it to themselves for a little while so they don't have to take the heat with every student at their high school, with their high school football coach, with a pastor at church, with a mailman, right? I mean, it's going to be, some of these places can be overwhelming. You say right now you're going to go to USC, and every single day of your life, is people telling you you're an idiot and it's crazy and you're betraying your hometown. So maybe we just won't hear. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. Any thoughts? Are those the likely possibilities? Are there others that I'm missing?
A lot of these guys have official visits the rest of June too. And so if you want to take your official visit uncommitted publicly, or if you're worried that, the school's not going to bring you in if you make a commitment, that could be something as well. But USC, Lincoln Riley, they typically don't jump the gun on, hey, we got a guy. I mean, right? Fans will do that. Fans will read into like this kid posted something, and I think that's a commitment, and now I'm running with it. Like Lincoln Riley, he understands it's not a kid saying, "Oh, I think I might think about coming here." Like when they push that out, they know. So yeah, there can be, right? Some of them want the video edit, some of them want to make something, some of them want to do all that stuff, and so it can take a bit sort of for any reason. But again, I don't think there's any reason to come out of here thinking, oh, they didn't get, 3, possibly more from this group. So the timing will be interesting to see. You want to hear it, right? You're right. You want to hear it right now, right? Like as soon as it's done, you want them to put that out and announce.
Yeah, and people always say, and they're right, that verbal commitments don't mean anything, but they mean something. A verbal commitment means that at least at that point in time, that kid was sold enough on your program that he was willing to tell the world that he was going there, even if the people at home aren't going to like it. That's not nothing. And if you want to sign a kid to a letter of intent, the first thing you have to do is convince them that that's the place you want him to go. And that's what a verbal commitment means. It doesn't mean it's going to hold up, but the idea that guys leaving without making a verbal commitment and guys leaving having made a verbal commitment are exactly the same thing, because verbal commitments don't mean anything, is stupid. It's just not true. You want guys to say, Coach, this is a place for me. I want to go here. Because if they're saying that, that's what they think. And then somebody has to change their mind. There are rumors about some of the other guys. I think there's a lot of smoke around this Canadian kid who's now in Florida, a very big defensive lineman. I don't know if he's going to commit or not, but this is a guy who looks like he might be an underrated prospect, sort of a 3-star, barely slips inside the 500. But you look at his size, you look at his athleticism, you look at the schools that are chasing after him. Looks like he might be the kind of guy you want on your roster. What do you guys think about this kid? Boucard, I think his name is.
Yeah, Floyd Boucard. He was a late addition to this official visitor weekend. One of the last guys to sign up for it. I mean, I hadn't even heard his name until the week of this visit, when it kind of popped on the radar. And you mentioned it, he's from Montreal, Canada. He hasn't been playing the game very long, but he's got a really nice offer list. I looked at some of his film. He's got all those types of intangibles that you want, somebody you want to be able to develop. And the fact that he was really leaning heavily into Mario Cristobal in Miami at the time, he's playing high school ball in Miami, so it makes sense. But again, you mentioned there's some smoke swirling right now after the visit. Maybe he's feeling some of that pressure when he got back home, and that's why we haven't heard anything, if he's one of the guys. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it in the past. Joe McKnight, when he was being recruited, there was a reason why they had to keep it quiet for so long. He might not have got out of that state alive.
I think Fred Davis had to sneak out in middle of the night, like dressed in a dress with a wig, and they stuffed him in a suitcase. I mean, it was because those Ohio State fans are insane.
So it makes sense that players like this, where their stock is rising really rapidly, they're really impressionable. Maybe he got overexcited and then he got back home and said, "Hey, Coach, not yet." I don't know. There's like Eric said, there's a multitude of reasons why it could happen.
I think it's safe to say that USC is in a good spot with a lot of the wide receivers. I think there were 4 elite wide receivers there this past weekend. I would be stunned if USC doesn't land at least a couple of those guys. I mean, they seem to be in a really good spot with wide receivers. And wide receivers is a spot where USC doesn't have huge numbers, number one, and most of the better guys on the roster will be playing their second year this season. So they're only going to have probably 1 year, 1 year left. So that seems like a spot that USC should do well in. I wonder about linebacker. Linebacker is a position USC's recruited some good linebackers, but USC needs more elite guys at that spot. They had a couple of elite guys this weekend. What do we think? Any smoke, any rumor, any speculation? What do we think about these linebackers? Go ahead, speculate, McKinney. I know you want to.
They're in a fight. They're in a fight for those guys. So there are two guys. If we're talking about like pure linebacker, Riley Pettyjohn has been a USC target for a long time, and there's been a lot of mutual interest. He's a kid from Texas that Texas really, really wants. Like that's tough. So there's going to be a fight there. Noah McHale, same sort of things. Like Southern California kid, USC's been on him for a long time. Priority. Oregon, Texas A&M are his other schools. Those two schools are tough to recruit against right now. So it is something where, yeah, you really need those guys. You really need those types of linebackers. You got to get them. So Christian Gass is another guy from Georgia. I don't know how much like edge he has to him. And then Max Granville, a Texas guy too, probably another edge guy at the next level. But Elijah Newby played a lot of edge in high school too. And again, we haven't seen him in a game yet, but boy, the flashes there with his comfort level at that inside linebacker spot has been great. So those might be a couple guys where your net's a little bit wider than just needing those two in terms of Pettyjohn and McHale. But yeah, that's a group where you got to start picking guys from that type of not ranking, but ability level to add to this roster at linebacker.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned how Texas and Oregon are two tough schools to recruit against right now. Texas, for kids in Texas, has been that way for a long time. But those two schools also have a lot of money, it turns out, which leads us to our next topic. Well, maybe not. Let's do this first. We have another recruiting weekend coming up in 2 weeks, right? Is it going to be similar to this past one where we have large numbers of guys and large numbers of 4- and 5-star elite guys?
Yes. It's
So,
actually a bigger weekend than this past one, I think, if you're
okay.
looking.
So to be like the Army All-American Bowl is visiting USC's campus. Look, here's the thing. USC has not recruited Southern California particularly well in some years, especially defensively. Lincoln Riley, I think, could change that, but Lincoln Riley seems focused on finding the very best players he can wherever they are. What that means is that the USC home field advantage, I don't think exists in the same way that it did, say, 15, 20 years ago. But that doesn't mean home field advantages don't exist in other places where USC is recruiting. I suspect if USC is one of the finalists for 8, 9, 10 defensive linemen who are elite guys, which I think is going to be the case this year, they're probably going to pull in 3, 4, 5 of them. But Lincoln Riley is walking a high wire act, right? He is going after the best of the best. He is recruiting against people who have more money to throw at these guys than he does. He's recruiting in some cases against entire states. And he's banking his career and the future of his program on being able to win those battles. He has not in the 2 previous years, not enough. I suspect this year is different because USC is in a stronger position NIL-wise and is in a stronger position when it comes to their defensive staff. But that is the big question. I could see USC having a number 1 class, and I could see USC having the number 10 class, and it all depends on how many of these guys from the Deep South they're able to hold on to. Anybody disagree with any of that?
No, and that's the 2-week trip, right? Justice Terry, Elijah. I mean, everything can change. Like if somebody locks in an official visit 2 weeks out, even 4 days out, that's tons of time where you can change the visit or rearrange or whatever. But Justice Terry, Elijah Griffin, Jared Smith, like there are gigantic names on the offensive and defensive lines supposed to come in a couple weeks for that late June weekend.
Okay, let's talk about, we were going to segue into Oregon and their giant piles of cash. The Nebraska athletic director this week actually made a comment about that. He said a couple of things that are interesting to me. One is he talked about Ohio State and Oregon had $23 million NIL budgets last year, which was dramatically more than Washington had. This athletic director came over from Washington. I think they were around 10, which still may be higher than what USC had. And the second thing he said is that now that revenue sharing is going to be put in place, the collectives should essentially be disbanded. There's no reason to have collectives once you're revenue sharing. So let's talk about both of those pieces. Let's start with this $23 million figure, which may even be understating the matter. But what do we think of this? I mean, this is here's why I find this interesting. This is not a member of the media who finds this information and goes public with it. It's the athletic director from a Big Ten school who's saying, these other two programs in my conference are spending gigantic money, and implying very strongly, he may have said it expressly, I don't remember the full quote, that it's kind of unfair to everybody else. What do we make of this? Why would he come out and say this sort of thing?
Because somebody had to. I mean,
well, also because he wants Nebraska fans to hear it and say, we want $23 million also. I mean, I think that's point one.
Yeah, I don't think, look, the collectives maybe as a group are going to go away, but once the revenue sharing starts to kick in, and we started talking about this last week, 20 million per season per roster, you're still going to have your elite players who are going to have name, image, and likeness marketability. They'll still be able to make that additional money outside of their $230,000 a year salary that they'll be earning as an employee of the university. So I like what I think his name was Troy Dannon, what he said, getting that message out there so the conversation can start. But yeah, this is where all of a sudden now you can put some guardrails into place. All right, everybody, you've got your salary cap, figure out how to use it. And then whatever players you bring in, they're going to be able to go out there and earn that extra income based off their name, image, and likeness. I think it's I think we're going in the right direction if we're going to be spending this kind of money, because you can't have schools that have one donor that's saying, all right, you're starting off with 20 million. Everything above that is just great. Not every school can compete with that.
Yeah. So Eric, you made the comment that he's obviously at least part of his reason is that he wants Nebraska people to pony up. Remember, it was only a couple of years ago that Ryan Day was going public to the Ohio State donors saying, I need $13 million in this class if I'm going to compete. That apparently has paid off because he now has enough money to be recruiting at the highest level. But let's talk about this other business with the collectives. Is he right that once you revenue share, there's no reason for the collectives to exist? And even if that's true, do we expect that they're going to go away? What do you think, Eric?
Well, the one thing we know about college football throughout its history is that everyone involved at every school is very comfortable finding an even playing field, and nobody ever tries to circumvent any rules to provide anything extra for any of their players or potential future players.
That's correct.
So yeah, that's great. Let's do that. So no, he's completely wrong about the collective stuff. And he's wrong about it in just the sense of what collectives became. So when all the collectives became slush funds, right? Hey, we'll pool all this money and then we'll just hand it out to all the players. He's right. They don't need to do that anymore because the schools are doing that. But he's wrong in terms of what the collectives were supposed to be, which again, like, it's frustrated USC fans for years and years and years, where the collective facilitates agreements and partnerships, right, between companies and players and that sort of thing. That still has to happen because that's NIL. So you can make again, it doesn't stop anyone from becoming employees. I don't know how much the players want to specifically become employees, but if that's still marching that way, you can still become an employee or paid by the university, however it is. but that doesn't shut off your marketing ability. And so if the collectives are there to facilitate partnerships between the student athletes, again, all sports at that school, and these companies that want to get connected with them, that's where the collective can still come into play. And it's bonus money. Again, no school that wants to be an elite football program is going to go, oh, okay, we're all paying our players the same amount of money. That sounds great. No, every single school is going to look for, how do we get these guys a little bit more so that we can use that to recruit better players and have a better football program. Like no one is just going to say, yeah, okay, we'll all play by the same rules and that'll be great. I mean, when USC in the Pac-12 decided, oh yeah, we'll let Washington State have as much money as we have, and we'll let Arizona State have as much money as we have. Like, there's very few schools that I think are dumb enough to just sit there and go, yeah, that's fine. We won't look for anything else for our student athletes.
We're almost at the point where we're going to be putting logos on the field. So the schools are making NIL money. So there's no reason. I think where there's going to be an issue is when, if a school, if you're representing a school, they're paying you, you're on salary, however you want to define it. But all of a sudden now you're being promoted by a company that maybe the school doesn't align itself with. Where's that line in the sand? How is that going to get figured out?
Yeah, that will be an interesting question. Of course, most student athletes don't have any real NIL value. There's no market value for them. They're not famous enough. They don't push product. There are some. Caleb Williams does. Tim Tebow would have. Reggie Bush would have. There are a few every year that can. But here's the thing. And look, all of us would like it if they created a level playing field, because, okay, now you have the revenue sharing, so we're not going to have these other side deals. If players can sign a deal directly with a real NIL deal directly, like Caleb Williams did, then okay, we can't stop that. The problem is that the new revenue sharing model doesn't change the distortion in the market. Before, when you didn't allow players to be paid, there was a huge market for players' services. The players had value, especially the good players. That's why a Trans Am would show up in Eric Dickerson's driveway the day before signing day, because Eric Dickerson had real value and the NCAA deemed him to have zero value. You cannot pay him. If you allow pay, but it's still suppressed pay, it's a cap on wages, you're still going to create a black market. It may not be as big of a black market. It will still exist. And the reason is because $20 million does not cut it for every major football program when it comes to the value of their players. It doesn't. Oregon and Ohio State are already at 23. Oregon may be higher. 3 years from now, I can guarantee they will be. And that means they think that to them, the value of their players is worth more than $20 million. That means you're going to still have a black market. That's just the way these things work. People who don't understand economics, like the people who run universities, they always assume that you can just do whatever you want with prices and it doesn't have distortions in the market that cause externalities. It does. So you're still going to have that. And by the way, the 20 million isn't going to go to the football players. It's not. So the reason that college football is still going to be in a different position than the pros is, one, just about every professional sports league gives about 50% of revenue to the players. $20 million a year isn't anywhere near 50% of the revenue to the football players. It's not. And second, I think they're going to have to share that with a lot of sports that don't generate any money. This would be the equivalent of Major League Baseball saying, instead of giving 50% of revenue to players, from now on, we're going to give 20% to players, and not just baseball players, but we're going to give a bunch of money to the local field hockey team over here. We're going to give a bunch of money to the YMCA league over here. I'm talking, they're going to get as much as you are. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense economically. I don't think they're going to get Congress to sign off on that deal, because Congress isn't going to see it as fair for the players. And without congressional action, who's going to enforce the rule? The NCAA, the one that's already been accused of price fixing and loses every lawsuit now. I mean, so he's wrong. I know what he wants. He wants to limit it to $20 million because he doesn't have the money that Ohio State has. I get it. I also don't want Ohio State to spend so much. I also don't want Oregon to spend so much. I want USC to have a $50 million budget and everybody else be capped at $5 million. That's what I want. But that's not going to happen. And so it seems to me it's a pipe dream by the Nebraska AD if he really thinks that that's where we're headed. If what he thinks he's going to do is get more checks from people in Nebraska who want Nebraska football to get better, it may have that intended effect. And if so, more power to him.
Here's what's really hard to see is I don't like that collectives have to or the fan base, right, has to subsidize the players. Like constantly asking your fans, hey, we need your money, we need your money, we need your money to put this roster together. That's really tough. I mean, I was born in San Diego. I grew up there. The Chargers constantly told San Diego fans, you have to build us a new stadium. You have to build us a new stadium. And when that comes down from people you assume are running things well and very comfortable in how they're doing it, that's a hard thing to hear every single time, especially from a place like USC that just told all their fans, oh, you have to go sit somewhere else and pay tons more money just to come to the games. So that is a rough ask. And that's not just USC. That's a rough ask everywhere where they're saying, we need all your money all the time to be competitive in football. And then, oh, also, we need all your dues and your ticket fees and your all of that stuff too. It's going to, if it keeps going, it's going to be really expensive to just root for your team. So again, the money's got to come from somewhere because the players need to, they need to be compensated. Absolutely. It's tough to see the constant, like, going to the fans. We need this from you. We need this from you. So those things are just kind of tough to see happen at the same time, I guess.
Yeah,
And
look,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we've gone from being the welfare system for the billionaire owners of professional sports teams to now we're becoming the social welfare check writers for teenagers that are going to college. And that trickle-down effect there's a reason why San Diego, the Chargers moved. There's a reason why Oakland is moving to Las Vegas, everything. People don't want to support, they want to go and be entertained. And their value is, I'm going to pay for a ticket and I might make a donation here and there, but don't keep telling me that I got to pay the salary for some 17-year-old because you want them on the football team. That's going to turn people off.
Well, especially when the football program is making 9 figures, right?
Right.
The football program is making 9 figures. The football program is just not sharing it with the players.
Right.
And let's be honest about why that is. It's because none of the schools want to. That's why. I mean, the NCAA. It's not like the NCAA is this autonomous group of people sitting in this smoke-filled room deciding, let's make it so the players don't get any money. It's the university presidents that hire the NCAA people and set the rules. So I agree with all that. The other thing is that if you're going to do that, if you're constantly going to come and ask your people to give you large sums of money on top of what they're already giving, on top of what they're already paying for tickets, in order to pay these salaries, you are going to greatly increase the influence of these people in your program and your decision making, right? I mean, customers should have a say. And if you're constantly coming in with your hand out and saying, we're not going to spend our $118 million that we made in revenues on these guys, we want you to do it, they're going to say, okay, well, I want to roll. By the way, Lincoln Riley, stop telling me I can't watch practice. Just stop doing it. Why should I not watch practice? I'm the one paying those guys. The owner of a sports franchise gets to watch practice. And by the way, if I'm paying money, I'm kind of interested in which of these quarterbacks you're recruiting, Lincoln. I'm paying a salary, right? Okay, I don't like that kid. I like this kid. Why aren't you playing the kid that I'm paying so much money to? You told me he was going to be a superstar. I gave you $5 million. You're paying him a bunch of money, and now he's sitting on the bench. Either you were wrong in your estimation of his abilities, or you're doing a terrible job coaching him. I don't know which one it is, but I got a problem. See, I mean, at Oregon, they probably already have this issue. I think Phil Knight can do whatever he wants to do there. And maybe he's respectful of coaches. I don't know. I'm just saying, If Phil Knight wants to watch a practice, Phil Knight's going to watch a practice. If he wants to host the practice in his backyard, they'll have a practice in his backyard. That's the sort of power that the alumni are given. USC has not wanted to play that game for a long time. They've done everything they can to irritate, run off, and keep out of decision making the people who have money. Now they're turning around because they have to and say, well, we need a lot of money if we're going to have a roster. Okay, guys, but that's going to mean there are going to be some changes. And if you're not willing to change your attitude towards the alums who pay all this money, then you're not going to be able to compete with Ohio State. You're not going to be able to compete with Oregon. That's just the way it is. So it's going to put USC in a tough box. Everybody would be much better if they would just increase that $20 million to a larger sum, see if they can get Congress to sign off on something fair and go on their own way. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Any other
All
thoughts
right,
on this?
we solved it. Great job, guys.
Yeah, I like solving problems, but what I like more than that is just pointing them out and complaining about them. Okay, let's go on to our next topic. On3, the network that hosts the WeAreSC website, has come out with their top 10 position groups of all the position groups of college football. USC got stiffed in all of them except safety. Guys, what do you think about this? Are there groups where USC really should have been in the top 10 and it's outrageous they weren't? Is this people just catering to the fact that most college football fans are in the South, and if that's where your subscriptions come from, that's what you want to do?
Look,
What do you think?
go ahead and name 10 wide receiver groups in the country better than USC's. That was the first slight. That was the one that just really blew me away. I get that there's not a lot of experience, but part of the, the rationale, the narrative that was used in a lot of these lists that were put together was, who was recruited and how highly rated they were when they came out of high school. You're not going to find a better wide receiver class in USC's if we're using that as the baseline. But apparently Colorado has a better wide receiver group than USC. So
if you're looking for returning production, that's fine. But Mark is right. It wasn't always based on returning production. It was based on these other things. Would I switch wide receiver rooms with Colorado? No. Lincoln Riley would not. Colorado has some athletes. I mean, not a lot because most of their team leaves every year, but they have some athletes. But nobody would make that switch. Frankly, Dion would switch with USC right now. He'd take USC's wide receiver room right now. Okay, wide receiver one. What do you think, Eric? Any position groups where USC unfairly got stiffed?
That's the only one, and I think it's not. I wasn't enraged by it. I think what it is it's another look at how sort of, I hate the blanket term national media, right? But it's what the look around college football is about USC going into this year. It's a fool me once kind of thing, right? Like, okay, you told us last year everything was good. You're ready to go. That was year 2. You're buttoned up. You made your fixes. You're going to compete for a national championship. There was some buy-in, and then that's how you ended up. And so I think there's a fool me twice thing going into this year. And I don't think people are going to give USC the benefit of the doubt anywhere. I think there's a quiet sort of, yes, it should be better defensively. How much better can it get? And we'll see when it happens. Again, this wide receiver group is good. I don't know how many people who aren't like deep into recruiting and following USC spring practice. I mean, even if you were into recruiting, Jacoby Lane was not a name that got thrown around constantly as like, hey, this is a big time receiver. The buzz about him was in spring, but again, there's not a ton of like video or anything that gets out there about these guys. So I understand if you don't cover USC every day and you don't know who he is and you don't know kind of the buzz that's generating there. Mekhi Lemon, same kind of thing. Again, back and forth, offense, defense last year. If you don't know who he is, I know, again, a bigger recruit than Jacoby, but those are two guys that are expected to be huge pieces for this year, and they're going to sneak up on people, I think. And so postseason, is it a surprise if they redo these lists and USC's got a top 5 group? Not at all. But going into the season, I didn't really expect USC on any of those lists outside of safety, because you did bring in two guys that were really good and really experienced. I mean, I guess Kamari Ramsey's not as experienced as Achille Arnold, but like you have a bunch of guys there plus recruits. And so that's the one that made sense to me. Again, I'll take USC's wide receivers. I mean, maybe over every group in the country, maybe there's one or two out there that I'd switch with, but not a lot.
Ohio State deserves their #1 ranking there. I mean, that's an experienced group of talented guys. And I'll even make the argument that the safety group that USC was that was selected, to me, that's kind of a slight as well. And for the reason why you said, Eric, it's based on, well, they brought in Kamari Ramsey from UCLA and Achille Arnold from Oregon State. Didn't USC just have their best safety get selected in the second round of the draft? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm sorry?
I said maybe.
To me,
maybe their best.
Yeah, maybe it was just a bunch of mishmash bullet points that they used to put these lists together, and I don't know.
Well, look, you heard it here first. Eric McKinney, editor-in-chief of WeAreSC, likes these lists, agrees with them, and he doesn't believe in your football team, Trojan fans. So leave your comments on YouTube, send in your emails, let him have it. Okay, actually, Eric's right about that. It's hard to imagine many position groups where USC would be in the top 10 right now based on production, although I think they have some talented guys. Let's start going through the position groups, and we're not going to do them all today. Let's start with the most prominent position group on any football team. Let's start with the quarterback room. What do we make of the quarterback room at USC right now? Good, great, okay, questionable? Mark, why don't you start us?
I like the quarterback room. I mean, I'm a big Miller Moss fan. Well, I don't know if he's behind him, but competing with Miller Moss, you've got Jaden Mayaba, who Lincoln Riley was able to get him to flip from Georgia and become a Trojan. After that, though, that's where, you're saying, does USC have depth? I'll be honest with you. I don't care, because everyone will agree, if you're getting into your third string quarterback, you're probably not going to be having a good season. So you've got Miller Moss, who's been waiting his turn. He's played behind some good quarterbacks. He played behind Caleb Williams. You saw what he was able to do in the Holiday Bowl. He's not going to wow you with athleticism, but he has enough athleticism to beat you. He's going to use his head. He's a very cerebral type of player. And then you have Jaden Mayaba, who I think is, the antithesis of Miller, much more athletic, 6'4", 220 pounds. He is the type of guy who makes defensive coordinators, stay up late at night, because he can beat you with his arm, but he's big and strong enough that he'll run after you, he'll run at you, and he can run through you. So I like the balance. It's going to be interesting to see which direction Lincoln Riley goes. He's talked about he wants to use the quarterbacks differently this year than he has in the past couple of years. So we'll see. I like the room.
Eric, you like the room?
Yeah. I think, would you want 4 scholarship quarterbacks all spaced out in their different recruiting classes and all 4 5-star guys? Yeah, sure. Right. What USC quarterback rooms kind of used to look like, that's not reality anymore. So when you're sort of piecing things together, and USC got hit with the 2 roughest things that could happen, right? A guy leaves early for the NFL and your young stud jumps into the transfer portal and leaves. So that hits you on both sides. To be able to kind of react and put this thing together the way they did is really good. What I'm curious, Miller Moss is not going to throw 6 touchdown passes every game. He's not. He's going to have a rough game, right? There's going to be film that starts to get out there. He's going to see some stuff that's a little bit tougher. He's going to make mistakes. That's kind of what I'm very curious about. How does he bounce back? How does he stay in front of that or react to when that kind of stuff happens? I think he's mentally ready to handle all of this stuff. I have very few questions about it. When he doesn't give you the elite, oh my gosh, escape this defender and throw like a hook shot left-handed over his head for a touchdown somehow. Right? Can he keep making that play when he takes a sack or when he throws an interception? All of that stuff, and so that's the question: is as more film gets out about him, as defenses react a little bit, as he struggles, everyone's going to have that game, right? Everyone's going to have that Caleb Williams at Oregon State game. Can you make that throw at the end? Can you hit Jordan Addison for that touchdown on that just unbelievable throw after everything went wrong? That's kind of the interest for me about Miller Moss. Not rooting for him to play poorly, but when it happens, what happens after that?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good quarterback room. It is not as good as some of USC's past quarterback rooms. It's not as good as some of the rooms that Lincoln Riley has had in Oklahoma. I think Moss and Mayav are probably both capable of these are guys that can throw for 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 10 picks in this offense. I think they can, and that's pretty good. They're not Caleb Williams. I don't think either one of them is Jackson Dart, for that matter. And if you look at the other quarterbacks that Lincoln Riley has sent to New York for the Heisman ceremony, I don't think they're Jalen Hurts. I don't think they're Kyler Murray. I'm not convinced that it's the same type of guy that Lincoln Riley usually has, which is a guy that can beat you multiple different ways. I don't think Miller Moss can do that. Jaden Mayav might be able to do that, but I don't think he's going to play unless Miller Moss falls in his face, which I don't anticipate. So that's a long-winded way of saying I don't think it's a great quarterback room, but I think USC can win with both of these guys. I think with the wide receivers they have, if the offensive line protects them adequately, we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks. If the offensive line protects them adequately, these guys will have open receivers who can win 50-50 balls. They're going to play pretty well most of the time. And then what happens when you have those weeks where the defensive line is in your face? We don't know. I mean, Caleb Williams had some bad games in the defensive line that were in his face too. But he also had plenty of games where he would just magically disappear from unblocked guys and then throw the ball 50 yards downfield. That's just the sort of thing he can do. Mark, you want to say something?
No, Eric made a point that really sticks out is you're not going to have a room full of elite quarterbacks anymore. Those days are gone, and it's because of NIL. Malachi Nelson did not want to wait around. That's why he took off. He wants to play. So when you're considered a 4- or 5-star quarterback, you might be willing to sit behind another one, but you don't want to compete with 2 or 3 others. I mean, when Pete Carroll was stacking quarterbacks, those days are gone. It's just not going to happen. Those days of stacking 4 or 5 running backs in a class like they used to, putting them on Sports Illustrated, not happening anymore. You can go play somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, you might for one season have 3 or 4 superstar quarterbacks because everyone thought they were going to be the guy. But you're not going to have them once December comes around, right? I mean, some of those guys are going to go. Anyway, I think it's
a program out there that has 2 5-star quarterbacks.
I don't know about 5 stars, although I think Ohio State goes 3 deep this year. Texas, Texas
How many of them transferred in? That's the
Texas, and look, Texas Texas had 3 very, very highly recruited guys. They lost one of them this offseason because he wasn't willing to sit around, which makes sense. Okay, we'll hit some of the other groups in the weeks to come. Right now, we've covered what we have to cover. Now it's time to play the game. Are you ready, fellas? Are you ready to play the game? All right. This is my ask this week. Mark, I don't want you to forfeit. Most weeks you choose to forfeit, and then people complain that you didn't win. All right? I don't want you to do that. Last week you literally gave the game. You said Eric should win, and he did. Okay? You've lost 2 in a row. You should be hungry for that.
I think we're changing the words around a little bit. I said Eric had a good answer. to that question.
I think you said you'd give it to him. I think that's what you said.
I said I would give him-
And so I did. Look, I'm not criticizing you for last week. Last week's in the past, okay? We can't worry about last week anymore. I'm just saying, on a 2-game losing streak, you should be hungrier than that. You should want to win this week, okay?
Don't
I'm
question.
gonna let you answer the first question.
Don't question my passion, Chris, ever.
All right. Well, let's be passionate about question number 1. Who's the most important recruit from this past weekend for USC?
All right. So Juju would be the easy answer. Hayden Lowe would also be an easy answer. He committed. Juju is the jewel of the class. But I'm going to go with Willie Wasker. And it's because he gets the hockey assist for Hayden Lowe's commitment over the weekend. Go read the article that Eric put up talking about Willie. I guess Willie and Hayden hung out together over the weekend, at Lincoln's house. And Hayden asked Willie, why did you commit to USC? And it was the answer that he gave that said, you know what, this dude's going to be a big time player at USC, but also a really good representative. It's all the family aspect of it for me. And I'm kind of a family man. To me, feeling where I belong and feeling part of the family is huge for me. That's a big part of my recruitment. Minutes later, Lincoln Riley was doing this on Twitter.
And now Willie's a part of your family.
Yep. And
All
that's
right, so I did not expect that answer, Mark. I like that under the radar, stealthy response leading us off. That's impressive. Eric, do you have a better answer?
I don't know better. I've talked to Willie a couple of times. I like him. He's going to be a good part of this class. But I'm going to go more towards the top. So I'm tempted to go with Dorian Brew just because USC didn't get some local corners, and he's a guy that they've kind of set out after, and you can say we beat Texas and Ohio State for a big-time 5-star recruit. That's big. I'm going to go with Noah McHale. He's a local linebacker. USC has been on him for a long time. We talked about linebackers. You need to keep adding those kind of guys. And he would be another, again, to go to the negative side, if he ends up at Oregon, it's another flag planted in Southern California for Oregon, and they can say absolute. I mean, with some of these guys that Oregon's gotten, it has not been a direct 1-to-1. USC really wanted that guy as much as Oregon did. Not always. There have been a few, and I think this would be another one where that is a big time loss if they end up losing him. Now, if you get Riley Pettyjohn, that's a different conversation. But right now, if USC is going to go after Noah McHale, then they don't get him. That's a loss.
Yeah, I liked the stealthy answer that Mark gave us, but I agree with Eric. That would be a tough loss to take. At some point, USC has to stand up in Southern California to the guys that they think are elite, and they have to win those battles, even if Oregon's offering more money, or they need to find a way to get more money. You have to stop losing Southern California recruiting battles to Oregon. You have to. And especially at a position of need, and linebacker is a real position of need. Obviously, defensive lineman is also, but defensive lineman, there's so many elite prospects are going after, and they're having so much success that I think that class is going to be quite solid. But linebacker, I don't know. If you don't get Noah McHale, they'll probably get some guys. They'll probably be good, but it's a bunch of out-of-state guys who are going to have a lot of pressure to stay home, close to mom, and not betray all their friends and family, which is the way it's going to be stated to them. Okay, 1 point for Eric, 1-0. All right, question number 2. Big Ten fan base you're most excited to hang out with. McKinney.
Wisconsin.
Good answer.
I don't know if it's close.
I think it's close. I think there's another quarter. Mark, what do you think?
So I've already had a really good time in Lincoln, Nebraska. I know what that's all about. I've been to Columbus. Like I said, I walked through Heinegate when that thing was still in action. I'm with Eric. I want to check out Wisconsin fan in their native land. I want to see what they're all about. They were fun to hang out with down at the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. Yeah, if not Wisconsin, just to be different, maybe Rutgers fan just because of that whole New York thing. Maybe they got some sort of Bronx attitude towards them.
Now you can fit all those guys though in like one decent sized restaurant.
Right.
Look, Wisconsin's a great answer. You both gave the same answer, so nobody's going to get a point. But it's a great answer. I do think Nebraska fans are special. They have been supporting that program exceptionally well for a very long time, and it's been a rough go for them. And I don't know that it's ever going to stop being a rough go for them. But they continue to sell the place out. They continue to support. And they have a lot more class than some of the other fan bases that USC runs into. So I think both of those are great answers. Neither one of you get a point, though. It's still 1-0. Now, here's a fun one. Question number 3. Big Ten fan base you want nothing to do with. Mark Culkin, fire away.
Oregon. I was a rough crowd, but I want nothing to do with those hicks from up in Eugene. Nothing.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I can think of at least one other that's pretty solid. Eric McKinney, do you have that other answer in mind? Or are you going with Oregon?
So Oregon's the low hanging fruit for you, and it's not a wrong answer. I mean, Ohio State is the other one for me. Yeah. Yes.
No, those are the two obvious answers. I mean, I think going to the Big House will actually be a good experience. I'm sure there'll be some mouthy Michigan fans, but Michigan fans are not going to be Oregon fans. They're not going to be Ohio State fans, both of whom I've dealt with, and they're awful. They're awful. Ohio State fans are terrible people. Oregon fans are worse. Both are good answers. You both get a point. It's 2-1. This is a very even matchup. We got to get some separation here. Oh, here we go. Question number 4. This has a whole lot to do with USC football. Coolest car in a movie or television series? Eric, go.
So with all due respect to the stair car from Arrested Development, because I do love hop-ons. This is middle of the road, I guess. I'm gonna go with the Batmobile, right? The Batmobile. Yes.
I mean, look, it's not a wrong answer. It's never a wrong answer. It's not an interesting answer, but I get where you're coming from. Mark, what do you have?
So Eric could have chose from Kit from Knight Rider. He could have chose the General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard. He had Magnum's Ferrari.
Yeah.
I mean, did either one of you see the movie Less Than Zero with Robert Downey Jr. and Andrew McCarthy?
That was a long time ago, but yes.
Okay, so the right answer is Magnum's Ferrari, but personally, I want that 59 convertible Corvette from Less Than Zero.
Yeah, you could also, if we're talking Ferraris, you could also go Christy Brinkley's Ferrari in the Vacation film. I mean, she enhances the value of the car, but nonetheless, Mark, you're right. Eric's answer was perfectly acceptable. It was also boring. It's 2-2. Number 5, movie sequel that absolutely has to get made. Mark.
I'm not a huge fan of sequels because it usually ruins.
I don't care if you're a fan. What's the one that has to get made?
All right, if I have to pick one, give me the Breakfast Club Reunion Detention Center.
Okay. Like the age right now?
Yeah, that or their kids are serving detention together, one or the other.
Okay. Eric?
So Mark did have it right? No sequel needs to get made. If we're gonna make one, I would like to wrap up the Zombieland trilogy and finish with a third one.
I do love me some Zombieland. First of all, I don't agree with you guys that most of the time sequels are a bad idea. But
they did make Top Gun 2. I get it. I mean, I get it.
That's a problem. Right? No Godfather 2. You guys don't want Rocky 3 and Rocky 4. Come on now.
They should have stopped with Airplane 1.
Probably. They probably should have stopped with Naked Gun 1 since we're on a Leslie Nielsen kick. But
how many Die Hard movies were really good after Die Hard?
Yeah, I mean, well, how about Lethal Weapon 2? Lethal Weapon 2 may be better than Lethal Weapon 1's fantastic film. Eric's too young to have seen it.
That's always the argument. It's the Godfather 1 and 2 versus Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, right? That's huge in cinema discussion.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay, so nobody gets a point because I don't even remember what your answers were anymore. It's still 2-2. Number 6, position group you're most concerned about in the upcoming seasons. Not just this season. I mean 2025, 2026. The position group you're most concerned about over the next few years for the health of the program. Mark, what do you got?
Offensive tackles, only because of the youth. That's it. Other than their experience, that's it. But it's kind of it's an interesting question, because as we continue to go through the seasons, that youth doesn't become an issue anymore. So it's kind of a confusing question, Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry you think that, Mark. We'll see how that affects your score. Eric, Eric, what do you think? Are you confused? Are you too confused to answer?
Mark's just never concerned about, he has no concerns at all. So having him pick one is tough. So he's in the right ballpark. Yeah, it's the offensive line. The offensive line going forward, because I don't have an issue, and I don't want to start Mark on the stars, recruiting ranking, that kind of stuff. But when you do go after not specifically lower rated guys, right? But in a recruiting class throughout history, it's harder to hit on those developmental lower rated guys. That is what a gigantic chunk of USC's offensive linemen are going to be right now in terms of the last couple classes that they brought in. Your hit rate on these guys has to be better than like the national average at any position all over the place. So in terms of developing these players and making sure that you got all the right guys, because they're not right. We like a lot of stuff about all these young guys, and you hear this guy's developing and doing well. You're not going to hit on all of them. You're not even going to keep all of them on your roster. That's just the way things go. So yeah, you don't have an Elijah Page at every single position and too deep on the offensive line. So right now, in terms of who you have on the roster, there's question marks in terms of, are they going to develop? Do you have enough guys at this point to play in the years going forward?
Yeah, I think assuming Lincoln Riley sticks around at USC for a few years, which I anticipate he will, I don't think USC is going to have any trouble recruiting quarterbacks. I don't think USC is going to have any trouble recruiting wide receivers or running backs. I think that's easy. What you haven't yet seen with Josh Henson, who I think has brought in 2 solid classes, but what you haven't yet seen is the impact that Coach Henney seems to be having on the defensive side of the ball. You don't have 5 of the top 10 offensive linemen coming to visit USC, and all of them leaving with USC thinking they have a legitimate shot at getting those guys. You have not seen that sort of impact from Josh Henson. And while I think he's probably a pretty good coach, is going to coach these guys up. And like I said, I liked both classes. If you were to ask me, well, who's the best young offensive lineman on the roster? I would say probably Elijah Page, who also happens to be the one guy who was really highly recruited in the bunch. So I do think it's a potential concern. And if Henson's going to take big-bodied athletic guys that aren't as highly recruited, he's going to have to do a masterful job coaching those guys up. Granted, offensive line is one of those positions or one of those position groups where you often do see guys blossom into big-time players who aren't necessarily major prospects. USC's had All-American tackles that started off as tight ends, okay? But still, I think that's the spot. Defensive tackle would ordinarily be the spot, except with Coach Henney around, I think his presence is so powerful that you can go and get guys out of the Deep South that very few coaches in the country could get. And you're going to have to do that because those guys are not growing up in Los Angeles. So ordinarily I'd say DT, but I think the answer is offensive line. And I liked both answers, but I liked Eric's long-winded explanation more. So he's going to get to the point. And I say long-winded. Mine was probably longer, but I can't give myself a point. 3-2. Okay. Group you're least concerned about. Eric, go ahead. Who's the group you're least concerned about over the next few years?
So running back. I think that there's 3 young guys on this roster that can carry you for a few years. I think the guys they have in this class are really good, really versatile, fill a bunch of different holes. And again, the not being worried about Lincoln Riley ending up with a quarterback, the running backs that they've been able to grab through the transfer portal, if they need those guys. I mean, in terms of Travis Dye, Marshawn Lloyd, and now Woody Marks, like how do you not have faith that they're going to always be able to fill that with somebody? So love the wide receivers, love a bunch of different position groups, but running back is the one where it's just, yeah, there's going to be guys there.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, that would have been my answer as well. However, until Lincoln Riley shows he's going to use those running backs on a regular basis and churn out a 1,000-yard rusher, my least concern is with the wide receivers, because I know you're always going to have top-tier guys showing up in the recruiting ranks via the transfer portal, and we know that Lincoln Riley wants to throw the ball around. So if I have to split the baby, the running backs is a good answer, but I think the wide receivers is the even better answer.
So I agree with both of you, but Mark, I think you're right. And it's an interesting question. When Lincoln Riley got hired at USC, people who have been paying attention to his Oklahoma teams realized that oftentimes they ran the ball very, very well. Oftentimes big backs and powerful offensive lines, and they would run for big yards. We'll see whether last year, USC still ran the ball effectively if you look at the statistics, but there were times when they couldn't run it nearly as well as they wanted to. We'll see whether last year was just an anomaly, but I think it all comes back to the same thing. USC has to be better up front, and we'll see whether they are. All right, Mark gets the point. It's 3-3. Okay, let's offend some more people. Question number 8, the dumbest Big Ten mascot. Mark, you start.
So right now, it's a toss-up between a Boilermaker and a Buckeye. I wish Purdue would actually have a big beer mug and a shot glass getting dropped into it. That would be a great mascot, but I'm going to go with that oversized buckhead, bucknut head, whatever it is. That thing is weird looking.
Yeah, it's a gigantic animate nut, which is weird. I don't know what to make of that. McKinney, what do you think? Is it the Buckeyes? Do they have the dumbest mascot in the Big Ten?
It's one of them. It's definitely one of them. So the Purdue Pete, right, is the worst human mascot in the country. Everyone, there's a lot of human mascots. Everyone does it better than Purdue Pete, which is this like horrifying, somehow like Jason Voorhees Halloween mask of a face. I don't understand. Like Michigan State's got one, Rutgers, like there's all over the Big Ten. There's human mascots that they could go, why don't we just use the mold they're using? So that's bad. The Penn State Nittany Lion looks like somebody needed a Halloween costume and grabbed something they had out of their closet to wear it. It's brutal. It's a brutal mascot outfit to wear. That one's the dumbest. Purdue Pete's is the scariest.
Purdue Pete, look, you remember seeing that movie Mask with Cher many, many years ago? If you were to take the kid from that movie and combine him with Uncle Fester with the deep sunken eyes that are really dark, you would have Purdue Pete.
Purdue
But
Pete.
I think that's awesome. I think he represents Purdue's football program about as well as anything could. I like Eric's answer. It's a strong answer. It's now 4-3, and Mark, you're running out of time. Okay, you need to make a move, and I'm going to give you a chance with a really fantastic football question. All right, here we go. You have to take your chances with one of the following: a great white shark attack or a saltwater crocodile attack. Choose.
Give me the shark. At least if I punch it in the nose, I've got a chance.
Okay.
I have no desire to get into a death roll with a crocodile.
Okay. Culkin's going no crocs for him. What do you think, Eric? Just punch him in the nose?
No, the crocodile. I assume I'm much closer to land with the crocodile. It doesn't say you're not starting in the jaws, right? It's over there. I'm on land. I'm gone.
Besides
Quicker
James,
escape.
Well, they
besides
can
James
do that.
Bond back in the '60s, just ran over the tops of the crocodiles all the way across that body of water. You remember this?
That's right. I'm closer to the Batmobile too. I can hop in that and get out of there.
Yeah, that just cost you the point. It's now 4-4. It's now 4-4, and we're going into question number 10, which is in fact a USC football question. This is for all the marbles, guys. The 3 best USC quarterbacks of all time in order. Eric, go.
I'm curious how this will go. I know that I do not have. I'm pretty confident I don't have the same 3 as Mark. So I've got 3 Heisman Trophy winners, which is that's going to give away the 3. Third, really? Okay. So 3 for me is Carson Palmer, 2 is Matt Leinart, and if I have to win one game with the most talented quarterback that has ever played at USC, it's Caleb Williams for me. Again, in terms of what he did for the program, the accolades, the whatever, I think you can find 3 that maybe more to USC, more years, more wins, more bigger games, but the best, I'll go with that guy.
Okay. Mark, what do you got?
So I got the same 3, but I have them in a little bit different order.
Okay.
Fair enough. Look, it's going 1, 2, and 3 in this order. Matt Leinart, Carson Palmer, Caleb Williams. They all 3 won the Heisman. All 3 of them, though, did not lead the program. Carson Palmer, for instance, he literally helped resurrect the program with Pete Carroll from nothing into a freaking dynasty. Matt Leinart took the baton, won the Heisman, won a couple of national championships, took the program to another level. Caleb Williams, look, the only reason I have him at number 3, despite all that talent, he wasn't a Trojan long enough. And yes, he had the Heisman, and yeah, he's got USC back on the college football map as far as relevancy is concerned. He didn't win a big game at USC. You can give him a Notre Dame game, you can give him a game against UCLA, but he didn't win a big game. And I'm talking about a conference championship game.
So
how many does he win? So how many does he win with the 2003-4 defense, right? How do they lose a game in those 2 years?
I don't live in a world of ifs.
Sure.
He doesn't live in a world of ifs, Eric. Quit trying to force him to.
Or concerns. This is quite a life.
Yeah. Okay, so look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with those 3 answers. Those are 3 great players. I guess the question is whether you're going to go by resume, where Matt Leinart has the best resume. Matt Leinart's resume is as good as any quarterbacks in college football history. Yeah. And, he has the Heisman. He finished in the top 3 or 4, it seems to me, the second year. He has 2 national titles and a loss when he's going for 3 straight, where Matt Leinart played really well. Get the ball up to Hancock just a little bit. They win that game, and he has 3. But still, he played exceptionally well in that game, particularly in the second half. So he's got the best resume. But if you line those 3 guys up on the practice field, all in their senior years, inside, who are we going to play at quarterback? Matt Leinart is holding the chart, right? I think we can all agree on that. He did not have the size or the arm strength. He did not have Carson Palmer's accuracy. He didn't move as well as Carson. He certainly didn't move as well as Caleb. Caleb Williams is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen in college football. But Caleb Williams doesn't have the resume. Now, Eric would say, well, he would if he played in 2003, 2004, 2005. He would have a resume at least as good as Matt Leinart's. But those are ifs, Mark. What do we think about that?
Yeah, ifs, buts, and candies and nuts.
There you go. I don't even know what that means, but I thought you might come up with something like it. So here's how I look at it. I think Mark is more consistent in his approach than Eric is. Eric has Leinart over Palmer, which you can justify on the basis of resume, but not on talent. He has Williams ahead of Leinart on the basis of talent, not resume. There's an incoherence in Eric's answer that I cannot tolerate. Mark gets the point. Mark Hoken, winner for the first time in 3 weeks, 5-4. Congratulations, Mark. Do you have anything you want to say to the people?
Yeah, don't question my passion ever again.
Don't do it. Well, was that to the people or me? Are they questioning your passion or mine?
I'm making a statement.
Okay, because you almost lost the point. This was almost a tie. All right. Eric, anything you want to share?
No, I mean, I assume I can say whatever. I can't lose twice, right? Can I lose twice in the same week?
I will not deduct a point for next week, so you can go ahead and speak freely.
No, that's it. Again, so I'm gonna cap this with our pitch, right? Visit WeAreSC. You can sign up right now. Use code USC1. You get 2 months for $1. Tons of official visit weekend reaction right now through the rest of the month.
Yeah, no, this is the right time to do it.
Yeah, a lot of content. Chris is going to write an article that's worth $1.50. So spend a buck.
No, just a buck. It'll be worth a buck, though, I promise. If most people who read the article would say, yes, I would have given 4 quarters for that, I think. But we'll see. I haven't written it yet. It's just an idea in my head. I've been lazy recently. Okay, I guess we're done, guys. Good job for all the viewers. Click like, even if you didn't. Come back next week, even if you don't. Good to see you all. Until next week, fight on.